Hey everybody, Chris Thompson and Mike Mandel here, and we wanted to do a video to talk about insomnia because sleep is just such an important part of your life, our lives, having a healthy lifestyle that we want to share some tips with you that we've learned over the years that we hope really help you out. So the first thing we want to say is consider sleep a nutrient. So obviously we all know that we need water, we need oxygen, we need food, and technically sleep is not a micronutrient or a macronutrient. But if you just metaphorically think of it as a nutrient that you need to feed your body.
Then you're going to make sure you get enough.
Exactly. So that's the pre-framing of this entire video, is make sure you think of sleep as a nutrient. It really is essential. Now, before we go any further, let me just make sure we also say, consult your doctor. If you have any concerns over this material, we are not medical professionals. We are going to simply recommend things that we have found work for us and for our clients. And
always check with your doctor.
Okay, so having said that, so sleep is a nutrient. Mike, do you want to talk? Let's talk about sleep cycles.
Okay, yeah, sleep cycles are very, very interesting. Typically, when we fall asleep, we go through about a number of 90-minute cycles, some people as many as 100 minutes, but about an hour and a half, during which time you descend through 4 different levels of sleep, from high alpha right down to delta. Delta is the healing wave. Your brain is cycling at 2 to 4 cycles per second. It's very slow, and that's where you get your physical healing in your body. If you do not get enough delta sleep, you'll get sick, and over time you'll get very, very unhappy. And the interesting thing is, most of your delta sleep, most of that stage 4, is in your first sleep cycle. That's why the first one is critical. You may get a bit in the second cycle, but about every 90 minutes, your brain goes down, down, down. Your brain slows down, and then you come back out and start a new cycle. You are actually awake in between all of these cycles, but typically for about 5 seconds. You don't notice.
That's interesting, because we're going to be getting to, in this video, a discussion around the 2 types of insomnia. The difficulty falling asleep, and then there's the difficulty returning to sleep.
Getting back to sleep,
But it sounds like the difficulty falling asleep would be worse based on what you just said.
Right, because you're wrecking that first sleep cycle.
Your most efficient sleep, or your most important sleep, is that first chunk of it.
Up front. Okay, and surprisingly, your dreams, when you get rapid eye movement, are all in a very light stage of sleep. And what is intriguing is, do you know, you're actually asleep before you know you are. You think you're not. Gordon Emerson, psychologist, pointed this out. He said, we lie there and think we're awake, and we're actually asleep. We think we're just thinking. And he said, you can prove this with a friend.
Isn't that interesting? I didn't know that.
You have a friend in the same room, and as the person's going to sleep, about once a minute, you say a single-digit number. So you go 6, and they have to repeat it. They go 6. And you wait about a minute. You do it again. And then they won't respond. You wait another minute. They don't respond. And you say, are you asleep? And they'll say, no, I'm just thinking. But they are asleep, and that's in a very light state of sleep.
Okay, so you've woken them up.
And that's when you dream. And if you don't dream, you go nuts.
Okay, so we also need to move on to one important point,
now, let me just say about alarm clocks.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
Awakened, notice the proper English, by an alarm clock, you are sleep deprived, because the number of complete sleep cycles you get will determine how good you feel the next day and how well rested you are.
So true.
This morning, coming out here to our studio, I woke up about 8 minutes before my alarm went off, which is ideal. I don't like waking up with an alarm.
Because if you wake up to an alarm, it means you're sleep
in a
deprived.
sleep cycle. You're still in one. So I woke up, a sleep cycle ended, I got up knowing the alarm was going to go off. Now, some of you are going to have shift work. This is going to be difficult for you. Just do the best you can. If you have to wake up with an alarm, the very best one, I've never used it, but I've heard great things, a sun alarm.
Yeah, sort of the light comes up.
Comes on gradually with the frequency of sunlight, and it wakes you up just like the sun does.
So if you need an alarm, consider something like that might be a good idea. Okay, next thing is...
Let's talk about insomnia.
Let's talk about insomnia and dietary causes. So
bring it on.
There obviously are some dietary components to this, and there's much more than we can cover in this video, but we're just going to mention quickly, caffeine, probably not a good idea to be drinking coffee,
you don't drink a quart of coffee before
late
you go to
in the
bed.
day, and also remember that there is caffeine in chocolate. So if you are the type of person who's eating a lot of chocolate, even if it's the dark chocolate, the really low sugar stuff that anyone on a low carb diet would think, oh, this is great. If you snack on a bunch of chocolate before bed and you've just had a dose of caffeine, that might be hurting your ability to get a good night's sleep. So consider that. Yeah. And then, of course, alcohol. Probably not a good idea to be consuming alcohol, especially red wine, within, say, a couple of hours of going to bed. So if you're having a hard time falling asleep, maybe think about reducing alcohol either in total or at least within a couple of hours of bedtime.
Yeah, now that's an interesting one, Chris, because people have this mythology, oh, he just drank and passed out. But passing out is not quality sleep.
No.
It screws up your sleep cycles. That's why people, after drinking and passing out, typically don't feel great the next morning.
Yeah, and if you have one of those sleep monitors that measures your blood, not your blood pressure necessarily, but your heart rate, you'll find very clearly that your heart rate will go up, your pulse will elevate after drinking alcohol, which is screwing up your sleep in and of itself.
Interesting. So, now let's look at one more thing, which is briefly say excitotoxins. Excitotoxins are chemical elements, or chemical compounds that will cause the neurons in your brain to hypervibrate and sometimes even die. One of these is MSG, monosodium glutamate, found in some foods. It's hidden sometimes as, hydrolyzed vegetable protein or something. That can excite your brain. With some people, they get a very bad reaction. And the other one is aspartame, which is the artificial
fake
sweetener.
sweeteners. Yeah.
Another excitotoxin, not the best thing to put in your brain, we believe, at the best of times.
So just pay attention to your diet, think about things that you can experiment with, and see if it affects the quality of your sleep.
Yeah, you remove something and you sleep better,
right.
There's probably a connection.
Okay, so now let's just talk about stress and overload, because one of the things with insomnia is people, either as they're going to fall asleep and they're having a hard time falling asleep, or they wake up in the middle of the night and they're having a hard time falling back asleep. Often it's stress and overload. So we could be lying there in bed thinking about, last night, oh, I've got to shoot this video on insomnia then tomorrow morning.
Yeah, it doesn't keep me awake.
It's quite easy to have things running through your brain that if you don't resolve them, they cause you stress and then they screw up your sleep. So what are some suggestions that
we're going to get to that when we talk
Okay.
about the method for falling asleep when you initially go to bed. For those of you who lie awake for an hour and finally fall asleep, often you're flashing bright colored pictures in your head, and we'll get to that in a few minutes and show you how to deal with that.
Okay, so now let's move on to some solutions, and let's start with preparing for sleep.
Preparing for sleep is a good idea. And what I mean by that is start to slow your brain down early on in the evening. You want to make sure that your room is cool. A lower temperature helps you sleep better. You want to ensure your room is dark and quiet. Just do the obvious stuff. You can even buy sound machines that make rainfall sounds and so on. They work very, very well for me. Or you can even have it in your iPad or whatever. And make sure you're setting an environment to fall asleep. What about television before sleep?
So screens in general, bad idea to be on a screen. Not so much that the content itself, you don't want to be watching crazy news that really stimulates you or crazy action shows or something like that, but also just the light coming out of that screen can affect your ability to get a good night's sleep. So
it's the frequency of the blue in it.
Yeah, so just avoid being, if you're having a hard time falling asleep, probably a good idea to not be on a screen, especially something really close to your face.
Unless
iPad
you have
type of
that
thing.
night function that changes the color.
Within, again, about a couple of hours of sleep. So just keep that in mind.
So we know what insomnia is. We know it sucks. But what about some solutions so you can get a better night's sleep? Chris?
Okay, so we're going to talk about some of the things that you can do right now in terms of self-hypnosis.
Maybe not right now.
Well, no, right now.
Tonight.
Right now. Some things that we're going to talk about right now that you can try this on yourself as an experiment and you'll have some fun with it. So just to prove that everybody is pretty much open to suggestion, especially if it's positive suggestion that's useful for you, that will help you live a better life, imagine yourself yawning. If you're lying in bed and you want to fall asleep, all you have to do is imagine that there's another you over there and that you see that him or her, depending on what you are, yawning.
Even the word gets me.
If you focus on it, it will be really, I'm holding it back right now. It'll be really hard to not yawn. Which is a really, really easy thing to get people to do.
And it's a really stupid thing to do when you're doing it. Look, your eyes on.
Yeah, I know, it's
video
funny.
on insomnia. Now we're falling asleep trying to do this.
So one of the things that I will often do if I'm lying in bed and I'm thinking, oh, I'm not really that sleepy yet, but I'd like to fall asleep, I'll imagine myself yawning. And I'll do that, kind of making myself chuckle about it. How
you can make the
easy it is.
sound too.
Yeah, I actually do the yawn. And
yeah.
I fully go into a yawn, probably 4 or 5 times. And I'll just do that to prime myself, to convince not that I need convincing, but it's almost like this automatic, hey, if I'm going to respond to my own suggestion that I can yawn, I'm going to be ready for the next suggestion, which is to go to sleep.
Well, let's move on with this. There's
right.
another one from Chinese medicine that works really well for some people. I've only done this once, but it was amazing. You use your FU finger, the one, and right in the center of your forehead, you put it there, but you don't move the skin. You just do a circular massage quite deep into your skull. Not hard enough to bruise, but just do that for a minute or two right there. And it's amazing the effect it has. According to Chinese medicine, that has a connection to the brain. It will help you produce sleep chemicals and fall asleep. Give it a shot. See if it works for you.
Okay, so let's move on to some self-hypnosis techniques that
Well,
people
I think
can
we should
actually
talk
use.
first about the initial falling asleep problem.
Okay, sure. Let's do it.
If you have the sleep problem when you go to bed and you lie awake for an hour and you finally fall asleep, Richard Bandler did some research on this, the NLP co-founder, and he said a cool thing is people who lie awake at night and people who fall asleep quickly, like I do, are totally different in the sense that people who lie awake flash bright colored pictures in their head, which stimulates the visual cortex in the occiput here, and they comment on these pictures in a fast voice. Oh, I got to get there tomorrow. I got to remember to book the car. And I didn't get my flight. Have I ironed that suit? Is that all right? And by doing this, you'll keep yourself awake. He said people who fall asleep quickly instead focus on the kinesthetic, the feeling system. They get all comfy and cozy with the temperature cool in the room, and they slow down.
The yawning can really help there.
Get the yawning internal voice and tell themselves how comfortable and sleepy they are. It'll pour sleep chemicals in their bloodstream. So that's all you've got to do. Stop flashing pictures. Get focused on your physical body and slow down your internal voice, telling yourself how sleepy and tired you are. Make it a tired voice.
That is a fantastic one. Okay, so now we're going to move on to a few different self-hypnosis techniques that you can use. The first one, we've taught this a lot. It's a really nice exercise. We call it breathing with the eyes.
Sounds weird.
And yeah, but it's a very simple thing. It builds in fractionation. So those of you who are hypnotists and understand the concept of fractionation by opening your eyes and closing your eyes every time you go into a trance or self-hypnosis, you're going a little bit deeper, and it's really effective for sleep. So you simply relax, you've got yourself in your nice comfy position, and you open your eyes and breathe in. And as you breathe in, imagine that you're breathing in through your eyes. Then close your eyes, and as you exhale, imagine that you've got little air valves in your wrists and maybe in your heels, and you're exhaling through those air valves.
And relaxing as you do it.
Now do that slowly, do it at an appropriate rate, and maybe
Just keep
3,
doing it.
4, 5 breaths, you'll probably find that you can really just find it's easy to relax. I just said you can find
I got it.
a couple of weird times there, but you get the idea.
It's a powerful method. But suppose you wake up at 3 a.m. You can do this to help get back to sleep.
Absolutely.
You can do this finger one, the FU finger one. There's another thing you can do. Whether or not you believe in it, give this a shot with your doctor's permission. There's a homeopathic medicine called Nux vomica, also called colabrina. It's the same thing. You can buy it in a good health food store in potency 30C. There are no side effects. Take this if you wake up at 3 a.m., a couple of pellets or drops under your tongue, and very often you'll fall asleep again. Check it out.
So that's another one I want to quickly run you through is this idea. I want you to consider when you're lying in bed, a very quick thing that you can do is to do a check-in with all the different parts of your body. This is not progressive muscle relaxation where, I'm focusing on the tiny eyelid muscles. No, just do a quick body scan to ensure that your muscles are physically relaxed. So if you might start with, my head is on the back of the pillow. Is my neck relaxed? Yes. Are my shoulders relaxed? Yes. Is my stomach relaxed? Are my legs relaxed? Are my feet relaxed? Just like 3 seconds.
Find any tension.
Relax all the tension and then move on to whatever's next, whether it be breathing with the eyes as we just described or any other technique. So
another
what's
technique,
next?
that's a great one. If you're working any of these techniques from a deliberately relaxed position, it's going to work better. So the relaxation is a great one to do at the beginning. Another one is a really cool thing you can do to fall asleep quickly. It's meditational. And people say all the time, focus on your breathing, focus on your breathing. But nobody ever told me how to do it. And I read in a book recently how this is great. Notice when you breathe in at a normal rate with your mouth closed, your nostril edges will feel cool.
Of course, you're evaporating a bit of moisture from them.
And as you exhale, they'll feel warm.
And
that's all you do. You don't change your breathing rate. You lie still and just keep bringing your attention back to the feeling of your breathing in your nostrils.
It gives you a kinesthetic thing to focus on and a specific spot on your body to focus on while you're focusing on your breathing.
And as your mind wanders, just keep bringing it back to your breathing. And before long, it'll be morning again.
Excellent. Okay. What's next?
I want to show the 6-step tapping.
All right, let's do it.
Let's end with that.
We'll
end with this. There's 6 pressure points from Chinese medicine. I want you to tap. The first one is the very center of the top of your head.
Okay,
the next one is in the middle of the forehead, so hold your fingers vertical and just tap there. The next one is the outer corner of your eye, right at the bone here, and use your whole hand, you're going to hit it for sure. The next one is directly under your pupil on the cheekbone, close to the eye.
Right
Then the under edge of the collarbone near the middle on either side. These are both either side. And finally, squeeze your wrist like that. And all you're going to do is say you're lying awake. Just ask yourself, what is this feeling? Exhaustion. Okay, so you just go, exhaustion. And then you might say, exhaustion, but I can't sleep. I've got exhaustion. I'm exhausted with this horrible exhaustion. I can't sleep because of exhaustion. Exhaustion. Relax. Check again. How do you feel? Oh, I feel overtired. Overtired, but I can't sleep. Just run through this a couple of times. Typically 2 rounds in the middle of the night will be enough. My wife can't sleep. Sometimes I'll hear her doing the tapping, and she'll just say the words in her head.
Yeah.
It works just the same.
Yeah.
But you've got to give it a name.
Give it a name that makes sense for you too,
and you'll
right?
start, if you start yawning when you're doing this, you'll know you've just unlocked this and you're about to fall asleep. 2 or 3 rounds.
Your word could be overwhelm. It could
Overwhelm.
be
Mind is
uncertainty
frantic.
about something going on the next day.
Yeah, I've got
Whatever
anxiety.
works.
Anxiety about tomorrow. I'm worried about tomorrow. Whatever it is, just tap it away 2 or 3 rounds and go back to sleep.
All right, so those are your insomnia tips. How to, not insomnia tips, but solutions. How to deal with
we'll do
insomnia
tips on
how to
another
develop
video.
a great night's sleep, how to get into the habit
Treat
of
it like a nutrient.
preparing yourself for sleep, and then getting into the habit of doing these simple techniques to build quality sleep into your life.
Sweet dreams.